I've been feeling tired. Not just a need to sleep tired, though it is also that. I need to rest my body and my soul and my mind and my everything, before I shatter into shards of unplaceable aspects of my life. An early morning in the back of a car. I'm the youngest here by a decade, but I can't read the weariness I'd expect in the others. We leave the city for country greens, but there's still grey here. The sky not quite managing its grip on a torrential downpour. Later it will drop its load fully. A rotten scarecrow waves at me in the wind as if to say, "We're more alike than you think." I scowl, reject its all too friendly introduction, that we could be similar, and that we should form a relationship on those grounds. Maybe I do see fragments of myself in his wilting straw, but I've never much enjoyed the company of mirrors.
Can you give me a one-sentence introduction to who you are and what you like to create?
I'm Thom Robson. I'm a poet from the Northeast, and I like to create usually quite silly poems and then very occasionally something very personal.
What is your first memory of being creative?
I would say that I wasn't a very creative child. It's something that came to me later. But I think my first memory of being properly creative would be being 15 or 16. I asked my parents for a camera for Christmas, and then started doing nature photography. That is my where my current journey in creativity started, I think.
Was that for anything in particular? Was there something you wanted to capture or a place you wanted to go to sort of take pictures, or was it just a general sort of vibe you were going for?
Just a general want to be involved in photography. We used to go camping quite a lot, and we'd be in the Lake District or Northumberland or occasionally Scotland, and I thought it'd be really nice to have a decent camera rather than whatever phone I had in 2015, but it wouldn't have been a very good camera on it. And I had that I still got that camera because it's I don't shoot on it anymore because it's a bit naff, but it's there's some special memories there.
Yeah, well, it's like I've still got my first guitar, and I've soldered the insides myself, so the electrics are horrible, but you don't get rid of it because nothing feels quite the same as that first one where you kind of learnt the ropes kind of thing. Yeah, I'm with you. Well, the next question was going to be kind of linked to that, which was kind of what got you interested in photography. So we've kind of covered that a little bit, unless there's anything more, like, I don't know, if there was some sort of photography you've seen, there's a particular photographer that you found interesting or anything like that?
Oh, loads. Goes on the spot now. When I first picked up photography, no would be the answer. That's all stuff that came later, and stuff that I never really tried to imitate myself because there's something very special about those photographers. There's a name of a photographer that I'm currently blanking on, but did a lot of photos in the Northeast, specifically around sort of the East End of Newcastle and towards Wallsend, that I really like. Killip, his name's Chris Killip, and that's a sort of journalistic photography that I just don't do. I do photography as a job. I do motorsports photography and portraits mostly, and then the photography I do on the side, I take photos around Newcastle mostly, and then still the nature stuff. But I've never, bar the one or two projects, I've never really gone for the sort of high art end of photography. I love it and appreciate it, but it's not something I'm ready for, I think.
No, and that's fair enough. I mean, look, the stuff that we aspire to is something you kind of move towards gradually, I think, as well, isn't it? It's as you pick up strings to your bow, you kind of start realizing that you can try something different to the way we've done it before, and I will be coming to that in a later question, so I'm not going to spoil it. So this is kind of similar, but who inspires you as a poet?
As a poet, it's Tim Key. You won't see it in the poem that I submitted, but in most of my poetry, I am ripping Tim Key off unashamedly. I love his poetry. He's not the only one. Michael Rosen, there's a bit of Michael Rosen in there sometimes. Very occasionally, John Cooper Clarke will come up. I really used to really hate John Cooper Clarke's poetry, and it's only in the past sort of year that I've come around on it and really like it. But there's other stuff in there, other sort of parody that I get from Weird Al and Reeves and Mortimer, actually. Bob Mortimer over lockdown did a really funny impression of John Cooper Clarke, a parody of John Cooper Clarke, and those sorts of things eventually weed their way into my poetry. Yeah. I've been on the spoken word scene in Newcastle for about 2 years now, and everyone I meet at open mic nights inspires me. There's some amazing nights up here that I go to, and every time I go, I'm like, that's something I can try. There's someone I want to talk to and someone I want to follow. So like I say, I really do. The majority of my work is the silly stuff, but then I see people doing amazing, really touching, really personal pieces, and I'm like, well, I feel like I've got to try that now. My partner does a lot of that sort of thing, a lot of really personal poetry. There's some big names in the Northeast like Gary the Hat, who really straddles the silly stuff and the comedy with the personal and the touching stuff. I really like his stuff. So yeah, everyone I meet in the spoken word scene inspires me as well.
Contentious one now. How do you feel about AI coming into art and the creative mediums?
I disagree with the premise of the question. Anything that AI touches is not art. Yeah, generative AI. That is, you can't make a painting by analyzing other paintings and spewing out something. I think art there has to be a creative process. It's as simple as that. And there's lots of weird gatekeepy stuff about art. I know there's lots of, in times past, photography might not have been considered art because it wasn't fine art. But there is fine art that's photography now, and we're going to keep developing. But everything up to this point, we were introducing new mediums, but there's always a creative process. The creative process when it comes to generative AI is inputting a command. That's not creative. That's not a creation. That's an idea. And there's plenty of criticisms about real artists. That's the same thing, that they have an idea and then they get an apprentice to do it. Those criticisms are valid when it applies to that, but it's even more valid when it's a machine. And then obviously there's the issues with copyright and art theft, which is essentially what these things are built on. When the first DALL-E model went public, me and my friends had some fun with it for about a week, and then we were like, there's something a bit different going on. And yeah, over the past year, 2 years, 3 years, I think it's been a very predictable series of events, and the commercialization of art means that those with money are going to want to cut corners in order to boost their profit margins, which is why we're going to now start to see it specifically in Hollywood a lot more, and in the games industry a lot more, maybe a bit in music as well. And now we've got this other problem that we're using the word AI as a blanket term that just means everything. So if you go back in time, people will say, using the terminology we used today, you would say, Monsters Inc. was using AI for the hairs on Sully's fur. And yes, in a sense, that a human didn't write every single line of code, I assume. AI was somewhat involved. There is technology involved, but I think we need to be specific in our terms as well. I think it's a genuine attempt to muddy the waters there, to say everything's AI, and then that means that when you see that AI is being used in a movie, you think, it must have just been a VFX thing. It's all right. It's just a tool. When it might well have been, them using ChatGPT to write a script. And I'm currently on my way working towards a collection of poetry that I might put into a book at some point. But by the time I get there, Amazon is going to be flooded with self-published AI slop. and it's
Yeah.
going to be impossible to be seen. There's just no genuinely good use case for it other than to make some scammers some money.
Yeah, this is where in the video, if I remember, I'm going to put my "That's Capitalism" video thing popping up, because it's just, like you say, it only exists because of its ability to further exploit.
I mean, I rarely publish on Facebook and Instagram now anyway, because, well, I rarely have ever because of their privacy rules. But now the fact that that's then going to be used to put me out of a job, or to put other artists out of a job, and to steal from me and others is disgraceful. And it's becoming far too normalized. The amount of people who I, respected, and then you go on their stories and they're using templates that have AI pictures. I'm like, didn't we all agree 6 months ago that we weren't going to be involved in any of this stuff? So now I have a personal rule that if anyone I follow shares any sort of AI picture, that's it. They're unfollowed. They're gone. On any sort of platform. Some people, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say, "Did you know this was AI?" and give them a chance to take it out. If I know them personally, and then you get the chance to explain to them. But there's just no excuse for it. And it's the same thing with all the celebrities and actors that went on strike last year against AI, and they still share the AI images, and it feels like they haven't learned anything, and they're still getting involved with producers and companies that are promising that AI is coming no matter what.
What is one thing we could change as a country to help people be more creative?
I can't remember who said this, but it was an article I read, and I really liked the answer. And the answer is relax the squatting laws. There's other ways around it, UBI, rent controls. But if people can afford to live and not spend all of their time working, they're going to create something. I work a 9 to 5, and I struggle to create, and that's what this poem's partially about is burnout, because you're just too tired to make something. So yeah, people need all of their needs met before they can consider artwork a lot of the time. Great artwork has come out of hardship, but you shouldn't have to experience hardship. So yeah, relax the squatting laws would be my most anarchist take. But introduce UBI or just feed us.
Why is it that you feel driven to, put words to paper or to go out and take these photographs? What is it that drives you as a creative person?
I think it's a difficult thing to pin down for me, other than just an innate urge to do. Sometimes in my poetry I've got something to say. Very often I don't. Sometimes it's nice to, specifically at the spoken word nights, it's nice to be a comedian in a way. Not everyone does comedic poems, whereas I tend to quite a lot, and you get a kick out of getting a laugh, and not everyone goes to a poetry night expecting to laugh necessarily. So that's really nice. I would say I create mostly for myself. I don't write particularly pretentious poetry. I write what I would like to read, and I like reading Tim Key, so I rip him off. I think, is this a cool idea? Yeah, all right, I'll do it. There was a point where I was writing a poem a day on my lunch break, and then I would send it to my friends in the group chat to make them laugh, and that was pretty much it. It was for me and my mates, and I obviously now I publicize my work a bit more at open mic nights and on the internet, but I try to keep that mentality that it's still don't do what's expected of you. Do what you want to do, because otherwise there's no point, and people liked the stuff that you were doing when you were doing the stuff for you anyway.
No, that's very true. All right, here's a good one. This is a good one. I'm pleased with this question. What is the creation you are most proud of?
I don't know if there is. It's because my poems are generally pretty short as well. It's not like I spend hours and hours and hours and days and weeks and months on them. Do a quick draft, go away, have another look at it, and then it's out. When I was doing them on my lunch break, I was getting the idea, and then it would be written within 20 minutes. So there's nothing really I dwell on. It's always on to the next one.
That's a very valid answer. Honestly, I do totally get it. I do.
There's definitely some that I like more than others. There's specifically lines that I like and I'm proud of in poems. One of my poems called Pink, I really like the ending of. I won't spoil it in case people want to go and check them out. The ending of the poem I submitted for this one, I'm really proud of. There's a couple of spooky poems I did during October that I like, that touch on some supernatural themes. Yeah, so I think I like specific lines in poems more than I like poems themselves.
What is the best piece of advice you've received about art, poetry, photography?
There are a fair few bits of advice that I value. I always think that encouragement is more helpful than advice, because if someone, what you need to do is just keep making stuff and you will get better, if you pay attention. So if you encourage someone, I feel like that's advice in its own way, that they're going to feel good about themselves and keep going. I've received some great, very personal advice about my stuff, about line delivery and pausing for laughs, because when I was first reading stuff, I was just reading it as a poem, and one of the guys on the scene said, I think there's some really good comedic stuff in there, but you need to read it more like a comedian than as a poet. So that was really good for me. But in creating more generally, the advice just is create more, and that started with the photography. I think that there's loads of people on the internet that have really flash cameras, but they say it doesn't matter what your equipment is so long as you go out there and create. And I was really skeptical of that at first, and I was like, yeah, but the photos I take on my phone are rubbish. But now that I'm a bit more of an accomplished photographer, I do take good photos on my phone. So I'm like, oh no, it is true. You can make nice pictures or take nice pictures with any piece of equipment, including your phone, including I bought a camera on eBay, which is which I think was made in 2000 and uses floppy disks instead of a memory card. It's got like 2 megapixels, and I've taken some pictures on that, and I thought that's cool. And film is having a massive resurgence at the minute. I specifically go out of my way to buy out-of-date film, because if I wanted really crisp pictures, I'd use my DSLR.
Yeah,
I'm using film to enjoy the grain and the color, so usually I buy out-of-date film. So you can't. Yeah, I've rambled a bit there, but the advice is just make more stuff as much as you can with what you've got. It really doesn't matter so long as you're learning.
How does your politics affect your creative work?
I would say for the majority of my poems, you won't necessarily see my politics in them. But in terms of the creative process, it is huge. Politics hugely affects it. There's no minute that goes by that I'm not thinking about something political, because everything is political. I did a degree in politics, and I don't use that degree for a job, but I do still think that I use it every day in the stuff that I think about. So very occasionally there will be a poem that is political, like with a capital P. The poem that I submitted to this, I would say, is political, because it's about work, and I might not explicitly say, this poem is about burnout because I've been working and not had the energy to write poems, but that is what the poem's about. So it does peek through. I really appreciate it when people's art is explicitly political. I really enjoy it, and I wish that I could do more of that sort of thing. But it doesn't feel like me when I do it, or when I try it all the time, and that's fine. I'm maybe not that type of artist all the time, and that the conditions have to be right for me to write or to create in that manner. I've been involved with various projects and artists' projects raising money for Palestine, And one of the key things that comes up time and time again is that, okay, if we put on an open mic to raise money for it, a lot of the poems that people are going to be inspired to write about Palestine and to speak about Palestine. But it's, if it's an open mic, it's an open mic. There still needs to be laughter. There still needs to be joy. Otherwise, people are coming along, they're raising money, but they're going to go away quite depressed. And they're not going to want to come back, so they're going to think it was a depressing night, even no matter how important it was. So yeah, you still need laughter. So so even for those things that are explicitly political, sharing stuff that makes people laugh is still important, and there's still a place for that.
What are you working on at the moment / next?
So at some point in the summer, I'm going to maybe go back to doing a poem a day, because when it's light outside, I find it a lot easier to do that sort of thing. So I really enjoy that. My background project, which is what I'm working on whenever I get time to, over the months, is a book of poetry based on Arthurian literature and Arthurian lore. And I'm really enjoying that, because that isn't funny. It is a pretty straight down the middle book of Arthurian poems. I'm really enjoying that. Photography wise, more of the same, really, portraits and city shots. But yeah, the only thing that I'm currently working on and will always be working on for the near future is the Arthurian stuff.
I think we've touched upon this a little bit, but what is something you would like to try creative wise that you haven't had a chance to yet?
Yeah, I think I'd like to try and start touching the high art end of photography, the more interesting stuff. Everything else, I think, when it comes to poetry, if you want to try it, you can try it. That's one of the great things, and I think the reason that Newcastle and the Northeast have such a good spoken word scene is that it's an art form that you don't need any money for. You don't need pens and paper. You've got your phone. You don't need canvases and paint or clay or a workshop. It's stuff that a lot of the time I do on the bus. So I think that anything that pops up in poetry, I can try whenever I want to. But with other art forms, it takes a bit more planning. So yeah, I think photography-wise, I'd like to get the film cameras out again and start doing some moody black and white photography of the Northeast. I would also like to learn how to draw in a medieval style, much in the way that Heather has been doing, so that I can illustrate my own book. A lot of the people that I meet are just poets, and so if they've got a day job and they do poetry. That's still a fair amount of hours they're putting into poetry. Whereas if I've got a day job and then I'm splitting the hours I've got left between poetry, photography, trying to learn how to draw, and volunteering and all these other stuff that I'm involved in, that it gets diluted very, very quickly.
It's a tough thing. Like, I've got so many hobbies. I've got my dad picked up a accordion. He's a street cleaner, and there was just one on the curb, and he sort of gave it a couple of squeezes and went, "Oh, it still works," and gave it to me. And I keep looking at it and going, "How cool would that be to learn how to play that?" But like you say, finding the time.
If I ever came into the possession of Northumbrian pipes, that I would drop everything to learn them.
Amazing. I'm not even sure I know what that is. I might Google that in a minute.
Yeah, they're just smaller bagpipes, and they're a bit nicer.
Okay, fair enough. Right, we've got quick fire round. All right, so this is literally just like near enough one-word answers, just for fun. There's no like great insight here or anything like that. It's just a bit of fun. So, what is better for creativity, freedom or limitation?
Freedom.
Color or black and white?
Color.
Physical media or digital?
Oh, physical.
The beach, the woods, or the city?
The city.
Favorite movie genre?
Thriller.
Favorite musical album?
Oh.
It's a savage one, I know.
He's savage. I think I've got a top 3.
Yeah, let's have top 3 then.
let's go Welcome Interstate Managers by Fountains of Wayne, Combat Sports by The Vaccines, and what's going to take my last spot? I think it will be There's Nothing Left to Lose by the Foo Fighters.
Favorite takeaway?
Indian.
And then finally, and this is the nerd in me speaking, I'm afraid, Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Trek.
Oh, interesting. All right. That is all of my prepared questions. I just want to say a big thank you for, number one, for your contribution, because it was excellent and it really added a lot to the competition, especially in the second month. Like, we're still trying to build up a bit of a, like, this is a fun thing to do to get people involved. And, you know, the standard already in, like, May, I was like, whoa, this is really good. Like, these are seriously talented people. So thank you very much for your
putting it on.
Well, this is what it's all about, isn't it? You know, like, when I sort of think about, well, what can I do with the time and resources I have, providing a space for creative people on the left, it seems like a no-brainer to me. And then just trying to make, you know, give people opportunities to try things, to have, you know, inspirations, drive to get things done. It just makes sense to me. You know, it doesn't cost us anything. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I find, particularly with doing what I do these days, I used to be in a band, I used to go off and, like, be sociable and stuff, but now I'm an old man, and YouTube is very much a solo sport, you know. So I really sort of felt like, I want to reach out and actually, like, socialize a little bit, because it can be a lonely thing being creative, because when you're in your own head, you know.
And as much as I say that I make the stuff that I want to make, it would feel a bit pointless if I didn't share it at all. You know, I need someone to say that's nice.
Yeah, of course you do. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's that mutual support, because, like I say, my knowledge of poetry is pretty much limited to you know, my A-level English, Carol Ann Duffy and Seamus Heaney and stuff like that. That's as far as my knowledge kind of goes, but I can appreciate it when I read it, and I can appreciate the effort that goes into it, because I know from when I was trying to write mine for this month, I basically went at it like I was writing song lyrics, hence why everything rhymes and is like a neat little same syllables each line, you know. But yeah, like, it makes you really appreciate, like, God, I don't have that bit that Tom has. Like, you know, when I read that last line of your contribution, I was just like, that is such a, like, amazingly artful, thoughtful, layered line. I was just like, I was just trying to rhyme something with star. But, you know, that's such is life, right? We all have our strengths, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, my knowledge, technical knowledge of poetry it's not that good, to be honest. Only in recent times has it improved, because when I did my GCSEs, I hated it. I really hated it, and it wasn't until I discovered the likes of Tim Key that I thought, oh, you know what, poetry can be for people that want to make weird stuff instead. And then discovering John Cooper Clarke, even though I didn't like him at the time, being like, okay, you can come from a working class background and be a poet, which isn't something that you consider growing up. Even when you study it, and even when you're made to write it at school, you're thinking, all these people I study are lords and ladies and landed gentry. So yeah, finding people, it's always on the left, because creatives often are sharing together and inspiring each other. It's really nice, and it's a really important thing to have. Yeah,
100%. And like I say, I find seeing what everybody else is up to drives me on.
Yeah,
as
definitely.
well. You know, that courage and that energy does feed us all. All right. Well, look, I won't take up any more of your evening, because we're just coming up on the hour now. Thank you very much. Congratulations on winning.
Thank you very much.
It's a shame we don't have a better prize than just me calling you up and complaining about Google, but, you know, for the time being, this is where we are. But yeah, I look forward to reading more of your stuff and seeing how things develop as we go along. So thank you very much, Tom.
Have a good night.
You
Cheers.
too. Bye.
Bye.